Hello and welcome back to the NRLW Weekly podcast, thanks to Lite and Easy, fueling Australian sport. My name is Marlee Silva, and as always, I am joined by the one and only Ruan Sims. On the show today, we will recap the round that was in the NRLW. You'll hear the top two with Ru, and we're joined by a very special guest in the studio, Parramatta Eels breakout star Rory Owen. Let's get stuck into things. Ru, how are you? How are you feeling? We only have one more round of the regular season, and that makes me want to cry.
Yeah, hi Marlee. Yeah, it's scary how quickly it's flown by. I remember when we started, we were like, oh, there's still 8 weeks of regular season footy ahead of us. It's so exciting. But now we get to pump up for the grand finals. One more regular round and then straight into the finals, and I'm looking forward to that, that's for sure.
Yes, I cannot wait. I think it's going to be so interesting who ends up in that fourth position at the top of the ladder as well. But now, Ru, it is time for us to find out who were your Lite and Easy hungriest player and teams of the week.
Well, I'm going to start off with my Lite and Easy hungriest team of the week, and that one goes to the Tigers. Breaking that spell, I think it was something like 410 days since they'd had a victory, and they did it at home at the iconic Lite Oval, and they did it very well. In that first half, they were very, very impressive, and then in the second half, they held off a very fast finishing Dragons to come away with the win. So, yeah, against the odds, they did very, very well. Congratulations, Tigers.
They were so emotional too. It made me almost tear up when I went out onto the field to interview the girls. You could see how much it meant to them, and especially their coach, Noddy. He was just so relieved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even just before the game, we were in the press room when they were chatting, and they just had a very calm but excited vibe. That really controlled excitement where you know that good things are going to come off the back of it. And then even chatting to Noddy before the game as well, you could tell there was a really good vibe. So yeah, they definitely deserve that victory.
For sure. And I'll also remind listeners that I tipped them to win that game and you didn't, Ru. So that's a little pat on the back for me because I don't do that very often.
Sorry, what was that? I think my headphones cut out. Yeah.
Who was your hungriest player, Ru?
So, hungriest player of the week, no surprise. It is shared, but no surprise who the first one is. Isabel Kelly. I think she's been slated at 250 run meters. Some other places had sort of said it was 265, but 250 run meters is absolutely incredible in 70 minutes of football, not 80 minutes or 90 minutes, 70 minutes of football. She got through that. That puts her fourth overall in NRL history, including men and women.
Wow.
So the only people ahead of her, Clint Gutherson with 368 metres in 80 minutes of football in 2020, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck with 367 in 90 minutes of football in 2019, and Bradman Best with 357 metres in 80 minutes of football this year. So I think Isabel Kelly, take a bow. You are an incredible athlete. So she was absolutely fantastic.
Wow, she was incredible as always.
And then sharing my Lite and Easy hungriest player is Bree Chester with 59 tackles this week. She is the only other person on the most tackles in an NRLW match alongside Georgia Hale. Georgia Hale occupies spots 1, 2, and 4. Bree Chester slides in at number 3 with 59 tackles, only 2 tackles behind the most ever in a game. Like I said, that was Georgia Hale in round 3 of this year. So, yeah, congratulations, Bree Chester. You got through an absolute ton of work on the weekend.
Ru, what is your top 2 this week?
Right, top 2 this week. The first one was a very interesting one. It was sort of flagged back in July, and it was Cowboys to potentially relocate their NRLW team to Cairns by 2027. Now, apparently Barlow Park, ahead of obviously the 2032 Olympics, is going to be getting a lot of upgrades. Cairns have been very vocal about wanting to become an epicentre for women's sport in Australia. So they're obviously pushing for this to happen. Just having a look over the rosters, none of the players at the moment in the Cowboys NRLW are actually contracted into the 2027 season. So I imagine there's going to be a lot more that needs to happen before that is actually becomes a reality. But Cairns have been very vocal about what they want to do. And, there's obviously discussions happening, and keep an eye on this space, I say.
What do they think is the benefit of doing that? Because I think about sort of American franchises like their WNBA, where a lot of the female teams have their own branding, or they're in independent kind of towns and cities that are separate to the men's counterparts. I just worry. I don't think we have a big enough population or a big enough fan base for that to... I think you'd lose the momentum, wouldn't you?
Well, it surprised me because it just felt like it came out of the blue. And I understand Cairns wanting to push, like I said, to become a big hub for women's sport in Australia. But then I would personally have thought that potentially Papua New Guinea and Cairns combining for something like that would make a bit more sense to me. However, I'm not in the decision-making process, and I'm not in on these meetings. And like I said, it's not confirmed. It's not 100% confirmed. It's just plans and ideas at the moment. But it is definitely one, to keep an eye on. But like I said, I would have thought that Cairns and PNG would have been quite a good marry-up or mix together if that was what they were interested in doing. But I can't imagine Townsville being very open to releasing their NRLW team to Cairns, even though it would very much shore up that whole northern belt of Northern Australia. But I just think, I find it difficult to think that Townsville would be... I just feel like they'd be reticent to let go of their NRLW side.
For sure. I tell you what, though, is a positive thing. It is good to know that there are some towns fighting for an NRLW side because they see the opportunity there.
Yeah.
That's what we like.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, keep an eye on this space. We'll keep watching it. Yeah, second is the Warriors and announcing a few more signings. Like we discussed, obviously, Api Nichols returning to the fold for the Warriors. She was part of the inaugural season in 2018 for the Warriors and 2019 before, obviously, COVID cruelled the Warriors NRLW team. They've also now announced Kiwi international Leishon Albert Jones will be heading over. Maya Hill-Moana will be heading over as well as Harata Butler from the Cowboys. She'll be heading back home, and Capri Pacquiao, she'll be heading over as well. So another one, obviously we've seen the Bulldogs have had a huge amount of momentum with their signings. We can see a couple of great signings now for the Warriors. I'm still excited to see who they're going to be signing that is in New Zealand right now. And I think it's only going to get more cool with all of these incredible players available. So another one to watch this space.
Now, Rue, I fear you might be a little bit jealous of something that I got to do. Unfortunately, you were unavailable, but I got to have a sit down with a player that you're really liking this year, Rory Owen. Could you tell us, before we get into the chat that I had with her a little bit earlier, what has impressed you about her this season in her breakout year?
Well, I think what's really impressed me about Rory is she has been fearless with the way she's attacked the game. She's come into it. And right from game one for the Eels, she didn't look out of place. I thought that was really incredible. And just her physicality and her willingness to work is really impressive. So I'm looking forward to listening to this chat.
It is my pleasure to be joined by breakout Parramatta Eels superstar Rory Owen. Rory, thank you so much for coming into the studio. This is your first podcast. How are you feeling?
I'm a bit nervous, but I'm sure it'll be fun.
Now, I feel like, my co-host Rue, who isn't here with us, she has spoken so much about you this season. You look surprised by that fact, but seriously, you've had such a strong debut into the NRLW and she can't stop raving about you. But how's it been for you? How's this experience been coming into this space?
I think it's been pretty crazy. I know just this season, all I wanted to do was debut. And then debuting round one made it just so much harder because then I have to try and play each game. I don't know. I just get so surprised by how I play on the field. and I finish a game like, wow, I can't believe that went so well.
Yeah.
So it's been really exciting and really good.
I love that. You can see how happy you are.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard that rugby league is relatively new to your life, though, as much as you look so experienced out there and you know the game back to front. Tell us, when did you pick up a footy and start playing contact?
So my first season of union was last year.
No, stop right there. That is ridiculous, but okay.
And I guess I just played for a club like Sydney Uni, just club footy. And then at the end of last year, my manager David gave me a call and he was like, hey, I think you should give league a shot. And he got me in with the Eels. And then I turned up, July this year. Did preseason and it's just all been working out really well.
What a whirlwind, hey. So tell me then, where did you grow up and what sports did you play growing up if it wasn't rugby league?
Yeah, so I grew up in Brisbane. And I'd always played touch footy and athletics. And I carried athletics pretty much through all of year 12 because there's a competition, QG SSA. And that's really big at some of the schools there. So I always represented my school in the 400 metre. And I reckon that's helped. I know being fast and fit is pretty good for footy. And then just those touch skills really helps out too.
Yeah. So when you were growing up then, being a 400 metre runner, would you be someone who was looking up to Kathy Freeman that's the kind of sporting hero that you Actually, you're way too young, hey? You wouldn't
No,
even...
I know, yeah. I mean, she's awesome. Yeah, everyone loves her.
Yeah, but who was your sporting hero or who did you want to be like?
I guess actually it was kind of the other girls in my age group just because I always trained hard and tried my best, but the other girls in my team were a little bit better.
Oh, cool.
Or I know I had a girl, Kira Moore, and she'd always do really well at nationals and I just kind of wanted to be like them.
That's pretty cool. So you're running. Did you continue that after school or were you still being an athlete in that way?
I would say so. I graduated year 12 at St. Margaret's in Brisbane and I was like, I just want to try something different. So I went to uni in Sydney and I kind of just put my focus on uni and then dropped back a bit in all sports. But because I went to college there's a little rugby sevens competition and it's just kind of fun. And so I joined in and from there the uni kind of was like, hey, can you come join our team as well? And it just kept going from there. Yeah, joining new teams.
You're so casual about it, but that stuff doesn't happen if you don't have that skill set. A lot of the girls in the NRLW started with a touch background as well. Yeah. So that really helps with those ball skills and whatever. But the contact is such a huge element to things.
So really intense.
How have you found that transition? What was it like the first couple of times you got tackled in those sevens games?
I guess it's something that hadn't happened before, but kind of because it's the first time you're playing, the adrenaline just keeps you going. You can't just hang around on the floor, you got to get up and keep going. And maybe because I was always new in teams where the other players had been there for a while, I couldn't be the new person, be like, hey guys, this is actually too hard.
Yeah,
can we slow it down? You just have to get up and act like everyone else.
And so as a person, is that kind of what you've always been like I'm not going to show that I don't know what I'm doing or I'm less, you want to prove yourself?
I guess just fit in, if everyone else is doing something, I'm going to do it too.
Yeah, nice. And in your household growing up, were your family sporty?
Yeah, we always, so I just have one brother and then my two parents. And so it was 4 and we'd split into touch teams 2 and 2 and play 2 and 2 touch. Someone always cry, it'd get pretty rough, but yeah, we were pretty competitive.
Well, what did your parents think when you started playing contact?
I guess they weren't too keen. Maybe mum was a little bit skeptical. She's like, there's no need. There's so many other sports.
Yeah.
And then dad was all for it. And now they're so into it. I know I was a little bit reluctant to go to rugby league just because I've seen how tough it is and how hard it was going to be. And while I didn't have a super like a massive passion for it, I didn't feel the need to jump across.
Yeah.
But both my parents were like, this is such a good opportunity. Like, you could learn so much. You've just got to go for it.
Had you watched much NRLW before you came into it?
Not really. I think I'd seen, like, I know, like, I'd seen Kennedy Charrington, who's now my teammate.
Yeah.
Like, Jess Surgis, Isabel Kelly. Even when Charlotte Caslick went to Roosters, I feel like that made it a bit more visible for me. But I didn't know much about it.
Yeah. And so coming into it, what surprised you?
I guess, I don't know. I think it's crazy having, like, playing these players that you watch on TV.
Yeah.
Like, when you see the big names in real life, I'm like, what? Like, Tamika Upton?
Yeah.
Like, whoa. She's like a celebrity. But we're hanging out.
Yeah. I mean, I get starstruck when I speak to Tamika as well, but it's so cool because I think, you know, when I was, say, 12, 13 years old, we weren't watching women's sport on TV on a Saturday, right? And now you're a part of that.
Yeah,
like,
it's so cool.
Yeah. Did you ever think you would be, I mean, on TV playing sport?
I think no way. Even in athletics and touch, I don't know. I think now I back myself a lot more, but I never really believed in myself, and I was like, no, I'll never be very good at anything. Yeah. I've changed, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think we can see that on the field too. Like, you back yourself.
Yeah, I think I've turned pretty confident. Yeah, and even if I'm versing really good players, I still think I can find a spot for myself there.
What's helped you grow in confidence?
Maybe the support of the team. They're like, even at preseason, Elsie would be like, "Oh, you're gonna score so many tries," and I'd be like, "What, me? Like, are you sure?"
Yeah.
But because they believe it, yeah, I kind of believe it too.
Yeah. Tell me about playing with players like Elsie. You spoke about Kennedy being someone that you knew before you even came to the sport.
Yeah.
And then Marlee and Murphy.
Yeah,
she comes from a
she's so
union
cool.
background. Like, such strong leaders in that side. There must have been some great lessons that you've had passed on so far.
Yeah, I think, they're really inspirational. And I try to tell them, I'll be like, Miles, like, you're the coolest ever.
Yeah.
And I think they're just so humble that they're like, oh, we're just normal people. Even I love playing with Kennedy. I'm really sad she's out at the moment just because she's kind of like a big sister.
Yeah.
You know, I know if someone's coming at me or someone does something wrong, Kennedy's in there and she's got my back. And that's my favorite. You know, I can play however I want to play. And I know someone's going to be there to support me. So, yeah.
I think for all of us who have been watching the NRLW for the last couple of years, to see how Parramatta is doing this year is really exciting. They look like a different side, and maybe it is because of some young, fresh talent like yourself injecting that passion in there. But it just feels like the culture is really good. So tell me, what's it like being around the girls, and how does your coach, Steve Georgalis, play a part in that?
Yeah, I think everyone's super positive this year. So I wasn't there last year, but I know we were wooden spoon. And going into Broncos, everyone was like, yeah, we've got this in the bag. Like, we're going to win. And I think since that first game, no one's dropped their head. We're all like, we're going the whole way. We really want it. And same with Georgie. He just brings a really, really positive vibe. Yeah, he doesn't get anyone down. He finds a way to give you some criticism, but positively, you know, in a good way. Yeah, so everyone's got each other's back, and it's pretty good, yeah. Yeah,
it's paying off at the moment, and gosh, it makes for a very interesting final round for you guys coming up because, you know, it's still possible for you to be there for finals. So how do you feel coming into this final match and up against, you know, some of those names that you mentioned you already knew?
I think I'm really excited. I really hope we win. But it's just going to be cool to play the Roosters. I know they're a really good side. We'll go into review today, get a look at them, come up with a plan. Yeah, I think we can win.
Yeah.
But it's going to be really cool to play them.
You don't seem intimidated by it though. Like, even if they, you know, coming up, you haven't looked like that at all in your first season in the NRLW. Coming up against those big names, you kind of just are like, yep, this is my job though. Is that something that, you've found? Is that how you feel? Because that's what it looks like.
I don't think I'm I don't really get that nervous. Maybe just because I was just straight into it, like chucked straight into the deep end. Broncos was a really hard game and you didn't really have an option. And especially maybe I wasn't super educated on it. I didn't know to be afraid of these players. I know, like, in the Sharks game, Anessa Biddle is so, so good, but I didn't realise how impressive of a player she is. And so then each week it's just another hard person. So yeah, I think this week will be no different. You know, try just as hard.
Yeah.
And do the same things.
Yeah, that like hearing you say that, it makes so much sense, right? Like you don't know that this is
Yeah.
meant to be like that, so it's working to your favor. Now, one other thing I had to ask you about, because I did hear this from your manager who you've already mentioned. What are you studying at uni?
Biomedical engineering.
Sorry, what? That is crazy. That sounds like a very intense university degree from my mere understanding as someone who did creative arts and had to write poetry for an assignment. It's very different to what your uni experience is rather. So how are you, like, first of all, like that's amazing to be doing that at UCID as well. For people who aren't familiar with universities, that's pretty prestigious. You've got brains and strength. Like that's pretty amazing. How do you go juggling uni and footy?
I actually find it pretty hard. This semester's a lot better, just kind of gotten used to it. You know, once you're doing it for a while, you get into a rhythm. But when I first started with Parramatta at the end of last semester, so we're going through exams and assignments, and I'd never been in a professional footy team.
Yeah.
You know, I could no longer just say, oh, to Georgie, I've got an assignment. Can I just have the night off? So I was kind of, it was a lot. And so that's something I would definitely have to think about for next year.
Yeah.
But right now it's all going well. The uni's pretty supportive. And equally the Eels are like, please, we want you to stay in uni.
Yeah.
Keep working on that. So it's going all right.
And what can you do with a biomechanical engineering degree?
Like you work for companies like Cochlear.
So like a cochlear implant.
Yeah, so they don't just do ear devices. They can do like all over the body. You
For
can
like amputees and...
Yep, like it's kind of, I think it's any device or like non-living object that you're putting in your body.
Wow.
Like hip replacements, knee replacements. You can work in pharmaceuticals like Pfizer, AstraZeneca.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, do you like studying it?
Yeah. I mean, it gets hard at times.
Yeah.
And I know, not everyone's always going to love doing uni, but it's really interesting degree and I kind of recommend it.
Yeah,
I think it's a good one.
Yeah. And
if you're not sure what to do.
Do you see yourself like post-footy life kind of being in that space?
Yeah, so, I'm not really sure how footy's going to pan out. And
it's going pretty good at the moment, so I don't think you have to stress too much.
So I think I'll be in uni for at least 2 more years. So I haven't really thought about what I'm going to do. I'm just kind of keeping them both going well.
Yeah.
And I enjoy both, so it's pretty easy just to stick with it.
That's so awesome. Well, my final question to you, Rory, was going to be about maybe some of how you feel about how footy's gone so far. And, you know, I think Rue will be very disappointed to hear that you're a Queenslander because she is the assistant coach of the Sky Blues. But, you know, you came into NRLW not necessarily feeling so too passionate about it, but just wanting to give the opportunity a red hot crack. Is this where your passion lies now?
Yeah, I think, I really like it. I'm trying not to rush it is all, you know. I think I've got a lot to learn, so I don't want to get too excited. But yeah, I really love footy. I love the environment. I love how competitive it is and also how you can see it growing. There's definitely a really big future in it and I think I'd like to be involved in that. So I'm just hanging around, hoping everything goes well.
And finally, what do you think little 12-year-old Rory would think of what you're doing right now?
I think there's no way I could have ever seen myself doing this. Even last year, I wouldn't have known I'd play league. I just think, I should be really proud. I know there's like little girls who come to the games with posters and they say like your name and they give us bracelets. Yeah. I know, and it's crazy to think that people support you so much and look up to you. You know, I get messages being like, oh, you're the reason I want to play footy. Wow. I don't know, it's just really interesting for people to do that.
Yeah. That's a pretty amazing experience for you to have had over the last not even 2 years. So we love watching you, Rory. Thank you so much for coming on to the NRLW Weekly podcast and good luck this weekend.
Thank you,
and for hopefully the weeks to come. So we'll be cheering you on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
At Light and Easy, we're fueling the champions. Our ready-to-eat, healthy and delicious meals are the perfect addition to a performance diet. Whether you're on the court, in the ring or on the field, we partner with professional athletes and teams to give them more time to train and play. Fuel your passion and your performance with Australia's multi-award-winning healthy meal delivery service. Light and Easy. Eat well and play hard.
Rugby league has had its fair share of iconic eras. But honestly, I can't get enough of the high-scoring, line-breaking, flick-passing, magic-rounding, origin drought-breaking, Vegas-flying, simply the best era of footy we're in right now. And with more stats, insights and markets than ever, it's the best time in sport, and Tab has the best app in sport. Tab, we're on. What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
This is the Tab Eris debate. The time for sport is now thanks to Tab. Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Over the last couple of weeks, we've been having our greatest eras debates, talking about what have been the best things that we've seen in the different eras of rugby league. In the NRLW, it's pretty new, it's pretty fresh, but that doesn't mean there's not history there. And this week, we are talking about the biggest rivalries. So, Ru, what are some of the biggest rivalries in the NRLW?
Yeah, that precursor was probably exactly right. The NRLW itself is only very young. Obviously, if you're looking at just NRLW snapshot, you'd have to say two of the foundation clubs, being the Roosters and the Broncos, are probably have two biggest rivalries. They've had the most number of grand finals against each other, and they've always been filled with really incredible players. So the quality's always been very, very high when those two teams come together. I think that up and coming, obviously, as the game has expanded, you have to then look at the Sharks and the Dragons. The local derby, it's celebrated heavily in the men's game. It's celebrated heavily in the women's game. Both teams turn up. They really want to play against each other and they want to play well. So I think that's a natural rivalry that has really come to the fore. And I think we love seeing it, right? And you're a Shire girl. Like, you know what it's like coming up against the Dragons. So it's always a tough one for me because I grew up down the South Coast. So I was a Steelers girl when I was a junior. And then, being a Sharks girl as an adult. I have to get a jersey, half-half.
I feel like the rivalries we've seen in NRLW can almost be individuals coming up against each other. And a lot of the time it's the ones who are most evenly matched. I don't know, like some of the big, strong forward packs who come up against each other. Can you think of any two really strong players when they face each other you get excited about?
Yeah, always. I think when you see, say, the Titans pack come up against the Roosters pack, that's always really exciting because you've got the likes of Shannon Marto, Jess Elliston for the Titans. They're Queensland front rowers as well. And then you're coming up against Millie Elliott, Olivia Koenig, Keely Davis, there's a lot of rivalry there too. But then also I think you've got within Queensland itself, they've got their own little local derby, the three Queensland teams, they all love going up against each other. I think that's pretty exciting. And like when the Broncos play the Titans, that's always a pretty good clash too. So I think it's great. And I agree. I think we do like to sort of see these high caliber players go up against each other. And I think it's only going to increase, obviously, next year, Bulldogs and Warriors into the fold. The Bulldogs have had some incredible signings. Like their forward pack is pretty formidable and it's quite young too, which means they'll be together for a long time. So they're going to be added into the mix next year alongside the Warriors. I can't wait.
Yes, I can't wait either, Ru. Plenty more rivalries to be built in the coming years of the NRLW. It is time for us to preview the final round of the regular season in the NRLW. 5 games, every single one of them live and free on 9 and 9 now. I'm excited. I'm also sad to say goodbye to some teams after this weekend, but it all kicks off on Thursday night at Shark Park. Where else would you want to be with the Sharkies hosting the Tigers?
Yeah, well, look, hopefully it is not as awful weather-wise on Thursday night at Shark Park, as it wasn't like
God,
last
please
week.
no.
If it is, I won't be there with you on the sideline. I'll be up in the commentary box this week. So that was tough. But, Sharks and Tigers. So these two coaches have some good history together. They're very good friends. So it's always a pretty good clash when they come together. And I believe also there's usually a dinner at Nobu on the line. It's a pretty fancy dinner on the line between these two coaches as well. So they'll be wanting to get the win up. The Tigers, after last week, had such a good first half and were able to hold out the Dragons in the second half, which was impressive. And like we spoke about earlier, there was so much emotion attached to it. It was their first win for a while, and it was a win at home. So they'll be looking to back that up this week.
On Saturday, there is a double header up at a very hot Queensland Country Bank Stadium. It's set to be 31 degrees on Saturday, so that'll be interesting. The first of a double header will start with the Dragons and the Broncos.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? So, again, the Broncos have been on this incredible run. What disappoints me for the Broncos is that injury with Stacey Walker. That's devastating for her and for them. She has been absolutely incredible since she came into the NRLW in round 3, I think it was. And she has just been on the highlights reel every single week since. And they were pretty impressive last week against the Sharks, to stay in the arm wrestle, to stay in the grind, and to be behind with a minute or so, 30 left on the clock, and to travel 80-odd metres off a 7-tackle set, get themselves into position, and then to score a try to win. That sets them up really well for a semi-final. The Dragons, look, they did it tough in the first half last week. They came back strong, but they just weren't able to ice it against the Tigers. So, they can't make the top 4, but they'll be wanting to leave playing some really good football. It's the last game for Jamie Soward in charge, so he'll be wanting to get a result to finish off the season. And they'll be wanting to upset the Broncos. So, that's and it's also Steph Hancock's one of her old sides in the Broncos. Yeah. So, I know she's named as 18th at the moment, but you just never know what's going to happen on game day. So, they'll be wanting to go out and put a big performance on. But I think the Broncos will be too good in some really warm conditions up in Queensland.
And just following that one at the same stadium, the Cowboys will host the defending premiers, the Knights. And I'm really interested in how this goes because the Cows looked pretty good for a long time there against the Roosters on the weekend.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And they've been like this throughout the season. And to be honest, this game could potentially have like significant impact on how that 4 is made up. Yeah. To finish off the season. Obviously, the Cowboys, like you said, they've had some incredible football in them and they were in the fight for a long time last week. And when they're on, the Cowboys. They roll through their sets well. Kira Dibbs, big kick at the end of it. Tallulah Tillett's short kicking game is fantastic. And then if they're getting good ball to Ja'Kiah Whitfield, that goes a long way for them. I think maybe the matchup between Whitfield and Abigail Roach is going to be one to keep an eye on. They're both very physical, both very strong. And I think that's going to be, really exciting. And the Cowboys, like I said, they'll be looking to finish off their season on a high. Obviously, they can't make the 4, but like I said, if they can beat the Knights, that's got significant impact on how the 4 is made up. And however, I just think that the amount of strike that the Knights have, I think they're going to come away with the victory. So obviously that injury to Nita Maynard means Evie Jones comes on into that number 14 position on the bench for them. And I just think Tamika Upton being back in Queensland, she's going to want to put a show on. Yeah,
she certainly is. Well, then we get to our Sunday games. They will both be at CommBank in Sydney, the first of which will kick off at 1:30. It's the Raiders and the Titans. Now, neither of these sides can make the finals, but they'll be wanting to go out on a high.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both sides have had their moments where they played really well, and both sides will agree that they let a couple of games slide that they should have won. Also, the Titans are going to be celebrating Karina Brown's final game. She's been given the number 1 jersey. So because she was obviously Titan number 1, that was signed, the first ever Titan to sign with the Gold Coast. And yeah, she'll be playing her final game. So they'll be wanting to send her out on a high as well. And yes, look, getting a good win in here leads to a good off season and then gets you ready going into next year. This is going to be a tough one because the Raiders, they'll be smarting from last week.
Yeah.
You know, they had that game for a long period of time and they worked their way back into it, I should say. And then, you know, the Eels just hung on last week. But yeah, I can't wait to see actually Grace Kemp and Sophie Holliman go up against Shannon Marto and Jess Elliston.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be huge. And then Georgia Hale and Samaima Taufa. Like, we talk about players who've got full of strike.
Yeah.
Those players, that's going to be really exciting to see them come together through the middle of the field and see who wins that arm wrestle. I'm tipping the Raiders for this one.
Okay. Well, I think we are saving the best game for last this weekend because it could very well determine that 4th position in the top 4. The Roosters have locked themselves in, but Parramatta is fighting for the season as they host the Roosters at home in the last game. I think Para will be going for the Cowboys on Saturday. And then they will be looking to try and knock off the front runners at the moment. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, this is a great game. So I think this one alongside the Knights-Cowboys one, they're the 2 games to really keep an eye on throughout this week because like you said, like this is what's going to determine what that top 4 looks like heading into finals. The Eels' defence has been a real standout for me this year. Just their willingness to work hard on their own try line has been fantastic and their physicality has been really good too. So looking forward to seeing how they come up against the Roosters. Millie Elliott back into the starting lineup for the Roosters. Isabel Kelly's been named, which is great because that was very distressing scenes to see her go down with an ankle injury and hopefully she's good to go. Still no Taryn Aiken yet, obviously with that shoulder injury. But still, I mean, the Roosters have so much strike. And this one's hard to call. Like I want to say the Roosters because you just know what kind of football they have in them. But the Eels, I mean, I've said this a number of times this year. I've tipped opposition against Eels and then they come out and they just turn up just constantly for each other. And Rachel Pearson's game last weekend was absolutely fantastic. I mean, if the Roosters want to keep the Eels out of it, they need to reduce the amount of time that she's got to kick the ball and to move them around the field. But I tell you what, the reason she's been playing so well this year, Rachel Pearson, is because she's developed her running game to another level. She's no longer just a really good kick and a good mover of the team around the field. Her running game has really picked up and we've seen that out of her sort of at the back end of this year. So like I said, this is a tough one to call. It's a really tough one to call.
You know how we were talking about rivalries before and, you know, the clash of really strong players. Elsie Alberts, Amber Hall, Douche. Like 2 really strong, powerful, exciting players. I mean, Amber Hall last week, the second she came on the field with Millie Elliott beside her, I was just like, how is anyone ever going to stop the Roosters when that's what they've got running up the middle? But, you know, we know how strong Elsie can be. And, oh, wow, I'm really excited for that game.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be very exciting. So Amber plays second row and Elsie's in the middle. So, I mean, that's going to be on, I think Amber comes on the left. So that means that Chloe Jackson is the one that's going to have the job of getting in front of her to start with and making sure that Amber's not getting at Rachel Pearson. That's going to be her job, is to protect Rat and make sure that, yeah, she's not having to do so much defence that she doesn't have enough in the tank when it comes to attack. So I'm pretty sure that Elsie will be making sure that she's tacked on next to Chloe to make, if there's extra contact needed, she'll be getting in front. But, yeah, goodness, could you imagine if Amber Hall comes back against the grain through the middle and Elsie Albert's there waiting for her? Clash of the Titans, all right.
That'd be amazing. Well, Rue, I can't wait for this weekend. I know you can't either. It's the last regular round of the NRLW. Make sure you're tuning in to every single NRLW match on 9 and 9 now, live and free. Get around it. It's just you're going to have no male footy on Sunday. So you need to be sitting down and getting ready for that, because otherwise you'll have no footy to watch. So that's a no-brainer. And it's amazing.
Yeah, so you got the 2 girls games and NRLW wrap. So there's going to be plenty of football. You're going to love it. Get amongst it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for listening to the NRLW Weekly podcast with me, Marlee Silva, and the one and only Ruan Sims. Thanks to Lite and Easy, fueling Australian sport. We will catch you next week.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights, action, 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie in the Own.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.